Man, pulling together a lead list used to take me hours. Searching, copying and pasting, organizing, formatting, just to get a halfway decent list that was ready for outreach. But recently, I've built a system that's automated and AI assisted that takes that very same process and cuts it down to a fraction of the time. In this video, I'm going to be walking through how I've set up different automated workflows that handle a lot of the heavy lifting for me when it comes to outreach that enable me to qualify leads and book more calls and close more sales for my business. And so I'm not talking about just the tools, but the actual exact systems that help me move from research to making my life easier. So if you're an entrepreneur or a service business and you're looking to do more with the current resources you have, then this is the video for you. Turn your notifications on, hit the subscribe button. Let's get into it. Now, just a word on cold outreach as a lead generation strategy before we get into it. So in the time that I've been running my automation agency, I've identified different ways of going about generating business. But one of the ways that I've found to be effective and that I've also just enjoyed the process of is email outreach. And with the tech that's available today, with platforms like Apollo, Appify, no-code tools like Make.com, Instantly, Go High Level, and so on, you're able to do outreach campaigns at scale and have a reach that otherwise would have taken more resources and or just wouldn't have been possible in the past. And so originally, when I started doing these campaigns, I would go about putting together my outreach campaigns very manually. And the process would go, you start with a platform like Apollo, which for those who don't know is a software that you can use to identify your ideal client profile or ideal customer, and you can get all different kinds of information about them: email, location, the company that they work with or work for or own. And you can then take the leads from Apollo, enrich them with something like a Derek app is what I was using. Or you have platforms like Lead Magic is another one that you can use. And then validate the emails that you get from Apollo with something like a reune email verifier, so that you have emails that are going to land in the inbox and will actually be delivered and not bounce as often. And then you can upload it to a platform like Instantly, where Instantly will actually give you the opportunity to purchase inboxes through them, and you can warm up inboxes with Instantly. I think one of the reasons Instantly is notorious is because of their auto email warm up feature. You know, in the past, you would have to literally send emails back and forth in order to warm up an inbox, but with Instantly, it'll actually go through that, help you automate that email warm-up process. And so each of these steps, going from Apollo to Derek app, and then there was a step even before that, Leads Rapidly, where it would actually allow you to get the lead information from Apollo in a more cost-effective way, to then reune, and then the process of even cleaning the sheets as you go along. Each time you export from one of these platforms, there's usually some form of cleaning that you have to do because just the way it's formatted, or sometimes there's unnecessary information that's there. It could take quite a long time. Like it's usually a couple hour long process when you're putting together these campaigns. And so with platforms like Make.com, I've been able to create these workflows that drastically shave off time in the process of putting together a campaign. So let's say, for example, I were running a campaign towards business coaches. And so I preloaded that here. And within Instantly, you can specify who your ideal client profile is. So I have here business coach, Atlanta, Miami, California, just for example. And then you can filter it in other ways as well: the industry, keywords, number of employees, and it'll then give you a list. This is a list that was boiled down to 1,000 people off of a platform up to, like, I believe over 200 million people that are filtered through Apollo. And so then I could take the URL from Apollo, and then you'll put it into a Leads Rapidly, and it would actually give you an export of the information from Apollo. That's as opposed to actually going through Apollo itself. And so that's one kind of workaround that some would use to make this a more cost-effective process, because it is a couple $100 in order to run this from beginning to end. But with this system here that actually leverages the platform Appify, you're able to use this Apollo scraper. And if you saw a previous video that I did, I talk about Appify and how Appify has these different actors in an Appify store that can be used for all sorts of use cases. And so the workflow that I set up here is actually two parts. And so the first part is using an Apollo Appify scraper. And with this scraper, you can take the URL from Apollo. So let's say you have your list filtered here, you paste it into Apollo, and then you can run it. And now, you paste it into Appify, and then you can run it. If you run it within here, all the results would present within Appify, and then you could export it from Appify. But to take it a step further, you can create a scenario within Make where you start it by watching the Appify actor, this Apollo lead scraper is the actor in this case, and then the next module is the get data module, which will take the data set that gets output from the Apollo scraper, and then it'll put it onto a list, a spreadsheet that you've created for all of these leads that you've now gotten from Apollo through this scraper. And on that list, you can format it how you choose to. So it's a lot less messy than it would be if you're just exporting it directly from Appify, or if you had been using something like Leads Rapidly. And so here you have first name, last name, LinkedIn URL, organization, and it's specifically the fields that you desire. And so if you were to look at this list that had been run, you see here with the fields, the organization, the phone number, email, so on. And typically you'll get back about 70% of the emails, and then you will take those emails and you can enrich them. I was using a platform, Derek app, to enrich these emails. And what that means, typically you would take something like the LinkedIn URL and then get information about each of these leads. It could be the description within their LinkedIn, their title, some more information about them to help personalize the emails that you will then send out. Another good platform and popular one is Lead Magic, but you could also go straight from what Apollo gives you through this Appify scraper directly to cleaning up the emails. So here, after you have that information on the lead list, and this saves about maybe an hour each time, because the process of literally exporting information, whether it's from Leads Rapidly or Appify, and then opening up the CSV and then formatting it in the way that you would like, that in and of itself takes time to do. Whereas here, literally all the information is just going straight into the spreadsheet. And then once you have the spreadsheet, you can then go about the second part, where the first module takes the information, takes the data from that spreadsheet, and then sends a request to Reune. So now Reune, as I mentioned, Reune will help you verify the emails, and it'll give you an understanding of which ones are safe, which ones are invalid, which ones are unknown. And Reune actually has an integration and an API that you can use in order to programmatically verify those emails. And so without actually having to export from one area and then upload it here to do the verification, you can actually streamline it through a workflow like this. And in order to set this up, you can actually take the instructions from the API documentation, like literally copy and paste those instructions into ChatGPT 03, and it'll give you the JSON code to put into the module. So if you ever need a way of understanding and a way to know how to work the API for a platform, you can always just put it into the large language model, and it'll give you what you need. And so the first module is going to be HTTP make a request, and then there's going to be a sleep step, and that's because it's going to take a little bit of time for the emails to actually get verified, and then you're going to go and get that information to see whether it was safe or invalid, and this URL comes from that API documentation that, again, when you put it into ChatGPT o3, it'll give you that URL, and then you can generate the email now that you know that that email was valid, and then it'll get automatically pushed into an Instantly campaign that you create within Instantly. Now, this is one way of going about it, where you are validating each email one by one. However, this is something that you could also do in bulk. And if you were to do it in bulk, there are some steps that would be a little bit different. You would have an array aggregator, which would take all of the emails from the spreadsheet and put it into one line. And then all the emails would then be validated at the same time. Now, if you go that route, you're not able to instantly upload it to Instantly, no pun intended. And then once you get back the result from the validation process, the verification process, you then have to go through a step to clean up those emails. But what I will say is that when you go about it email by email, this is something that you could have running in the background while you go do other stuff, and it's kind of almost like an agent kind of running in the background. Whereas when you do it by bulk, this would be a scenario where you're looking to put out the campaign right then and there, or finish doing this right then and there. Either way, it saves a significant amount of time from doing this completely manually. Each step in this, from the leads coming from Apollo through Apify onto the sheet, to the leads, the emails being verified through Reune, to if you wanted to create a step where you have a customized or personalized first liner for your email. I didn't include it in the example I showed here, but you can actually have a step where after you've enriched the lead information, you can input a prompt to something like ChatGPT, and you can create a personalized first liner for the leads that you're sending messages to. And so the way I think about these automation, to be frank, is that you use it in a way that's going to be most effective to you. In practice, typically what happens is that parts of it you may automate, and then parts of it you may do on your own. Kind of like whatever takes away that burden or stress and makes your life easier. But this is a great way, and it's an effective way to outreach and being able to increase your reach, being able to create more awareness, whether it's around your product or your service. In the case of what we're talking about here, this is for doing outreach to prospects that fit what you offer, but it could also be used for creating awareness around a newsletter or a podcast or a software or anything else that you are looking to increase reach with. And relative to other ways of going about creating awareness for what you're bringing to the marketplace, this is exceptionally more cost effective when you compare it to ads, especially, and other forms of marketing. And then being able to automate it through these tools and tech that are available kind of makes it a no-brainer. And the landscape is always changing. When I think about like Apify and the scrapers in the Apify store here, they're developers who have put these together. So something could be here that isn't here next week, right? And if that's the case, then you have to find something else, and you have to find a system that works well for you. But you have these different software and sites that are available. You take something like Phantom Buster, which is I look at as an alternative to an Apify, where you can scrape information from different sites, and Phantom Buster is great with social media, creating automations for scraping social media. So it all kind of depends on what you're looking to achieve, but all in all, these kinds of workflows can help accelerate and make your process of going about doing outreach more seamless. And it has been exceptionally helpful for me with booking more calls. And so let me know what you think. Let me know if there's anything specific you'd want me to go further or more deeply into. But this is what I view as true AI powered automation in 2025, and the kinds of systems that, especially when you add in these large language models, when you add in these agents, Manus and Claude Code and Cursor, and what can be done, what enables real practicality in the systems that can be created today. And so that's it. How to increase your reach and accelerate your process of going about doing outreach. I'll see you next time.